Have you ever had that odd experience where you know exactly what you should be doing, but somehow you just don't do it? Picture this. It's 5 a.m., your alarm is blaring, and you've promised yourself you'll finally start that morning exercise routine today. Your workout clothes are laid out, your water bottle is filled, your sneakers are by the door, and yet, there you are, scrolling through social media for just 5 more minutes, which somehow turns into an hour. What just happened? Welcome to the fascinating world of the mental bystander effect, that peculiar paralysis of action that occurs when multiple mental priorities compete for your attention, leaving you doing absolutely nothing instead. Imagine you're walking down a busy street and someone falls over, clearly needing help. You'd rush to assist them, right? Well, psychology tells us that the more people around, the less likely anyone is to step up. That's the classic bystander effect. Everyone assumes someone else will take action. But here's the kicker. This same phenomenon is happening inside your brain right now, and it might be the invisible force keeping you from living the life you actually want. Let's dive into why your mind sometimes prefers to watch your life go by, rather than participate in it, and more importantly, how you can change that. Think of your brain as a bustling meeting room filled with different versions of yourself. There's ambitious you, who wants to write that novel, health-conscious you, desperate to meal prep, social you, who keeps promising friends you'll call them back, and don't forget Netflix binging you, who just wants to find out what happens in the next episode. When all these yous start shouting their priorities at once, something peculiar happens. Instead of one taking charge, they all look around at each other thinking, surely one of the other MEs will handle this. And in that moment of collective hesitation, procrastination, you sneaks in and takes control of the remote. Sound familiar? Let's break down what's actually happening in more relatable terms. James, a 34-year-old marketing manager, comes home after a long day with plans to work on his side business. He's been talking about launching this business for 3 years. His laptop is charged, his business plan is updated, but first, he decides to check his phone real quick. 3 hours later, he's deep in a YouTube rabbit hole about how to build a treehouse, despite living in an apartment and having no carpentry skills whatsoever. What happened to James isn't laziness, it's the mental bystander effect in action. His brain was overwhelmed by competing priorities. I should work on the business plan versus I deserve some downtime versus maybe I should first clean the kitchen versus I should probably call mom back. With so many mental bystanders watching, no one took responsibility, and his evening slipped away. The science behind this is actually pretty fascinating. Our brains evolved to handle immediate, clear threats like a lion chasing us, not the complex, abstract challenges of modern life. When presented with too many options or competing priorities, we often experience decision fatigue, which can trigger what neuroscientists call analysis paralysis. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, essentially gets overloaded in short circuits. It's like when you open Netflix, determined to watch just one episode of something, but then spend 45 minutes scrolling through options until you're too tired to watch anything at all. Your brain had too many bystanders, none took responsibility, and you ended up taking no action at all. This mental bystander effect doesn't just steal our evenings, it can hijack entire lives. Consider Sarah, who spent 15 years in a job she didn't love because the thought of updating her resume, researching companies, preparing for interviews, and dealing with potential rejection created so many competing voices in her head that doing nothing seemed easier than navigating that mental crowd. But here's the good news. Once you recognize this pattern, you can actually outsmart it. The key is understanding that your brain's bystander effect thrives in ambiguity in crowds. Think about it this way. If you were the only person witnessing someone fall on the street, you'd help immediately. There's no crowd to diffuse your responsibility. Similarly, if you give your brain one clear, specific action instead of a vague goal with multiple steps, you bypass the mental crowd. Instead of telling yourself, I should get in shape, which is kind of vague and has many possible actions, try saying, I will put on my running shoes and step outside for 5 minutes right after breakfast. It's a specific, singular action. By eliminating the crowd of options, you force your brain to take responsibility. Here's a fun way to visualize it. Imagine your thoughts as a kindergarten classroom. When the teacher, which is you, says, everyone clean up, chaos ensues. Some kids start, others watch, and nothing really gets accomplished. But when the teacher says, Emma, put the red blocks in the bin. Tyler, stack the blue blocks. Suddenly there's focused action. Your brain works the same way. It needs specific assignments for specific parts of itself. I tried this approach with my morning routine, which used to be a battleground of competing priorities. Should I meditate first, check emails, exercise, plan my day, The result was often doing none of these things well. Now I've eliminated the bystander effect by creating a ridiculous but effective visualization. I picture my brain as a corporate office where I'm the boss giving direct assignments to specific employees. Morning planning department, you have exactly 10 minutes to map today's schedule. Email management team, you're on standby until 8:30 a.m., no exceptions. Exercise division, prepare for a 20-minute operation immediately following breakfast. Is it silly? Absolutely. Does it work? You bet. By assigning clear, specific tasks to departments of my brain, I've eliminated the crowd where responsibility gets diffused. This approach isn't just about productivity, it's about reclaiming agency in your life. When we fall victim to the mental bystander effect repeatedly, we start to feel like spectators in our own existence. We watch our dreams, goals, and intentions slip away while thinking, someday I'll get to that. But someday is where too many adventures go to die. Dr. Ellen Langer, a Harvard psychologist, puts it beautifully. Mindfulness is the process of actively noticing new things. When we break free of the mental bystander effect, we stop watching our lives and start actively participating in them, noticing new opportunities, experiencing new sensations, and creating new possibilities. Remember Tom from accounting who always said he'd travel someday? At 67, he finally took that trip to Italy he'd been talking about for decades. When he returned, he didn't say, "That pasta was amazing," though it was. What he actually said was, "I can't believe I waited so long for something that made me so happy." The mental bystander effect had kept him watching travel shows instead of booking flights for nearly 40 years. Don't be like Tom. At least not the waiting for decades Tom. Be like Italy Tom, the one who finally told all those competing voices in his head to quiet down, while one clear, decisive voice stood up and said, "We're booking this trip, now." The next time you find yourself scrolling, postponing, or procrastinating, recognize the mental crowd that's formed in your mind. Then dismiss them all, except for the one voice that's going to take direct, immediate action. It doesn't have to be perfect action, just decisive action. As the ancient Chinese proverb says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Your mental bystanders have been watching life go by long enough. It's time for you to step out of the crowd and participate. And hey, since you've made it this far in this video, you're clearly someone who cares about understanding your mind better and living more intentionally. If that sounds like you, hit that subscribe button. I share new insights like these every week, all aimed at helping you live more and watch less. Let's turn those mental bystanders into active participants together. Remember, in the story of your life, you're not meant to be an extra, you're the main character, so start acting like it. I'll see you in the next video.